Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
Brought to you by GlanviaConnect.com.
Hello and welcome to Farmview. Well, as usual, it's Kieran O'Connor here with your weekly farming programme. And once again, I have a very busy show for you this week. Well, in this week's show, I look at the options and indeed potential of a new flagship environmental REPS 2 scheme. I'll also discuss findings of IFACs survey of the Irish food and agri business and indeed the impact of COVID and Brexit on SMEs in the sector. And plus I have an update on how a new on-farm service is improving sustainability and indeed water quality in rivers and waterways across Waterford. And plus, as always, I'll have a farming calendar.
Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
With GlanviaConnect.com. Ireland's biggest online farming shop and more.
Well, one of the key promises in the programme for government from an agri point of view was a new flagship environmental scheme to be known as New REPS and indeed REPS 2, which had been such a fantastic success. Now, the Farmers Journal have been running a 4-week series on the whole REPS area, and joining us on the line is the man who literally put this piece together, and that's Barry Cassidy of the Irish Farmers Journal. Barry, welcome to our programme.
Hi Kieran, thanks for having me.
Barry, of all the schemes, the Rural Environment Protection Scheme, the REP, there was a fantastic buy-in by farmers, and in the meantime, of course, we've had 2 other schemes, but no other scheme, be it AOS or GLOS, really matched the impact that the REP scheme had.
No, of course, every farmer really who'll recall REPS will call it with fondness, really. I don't think we've heard a bad word about it in the last fortnight, and now we've been covering this series and into our 3rd week now. But yeah, going back to June, in the programme for government, the REPS and a REPS Mark 2 or Style 2 was one of the key promises for the government. And farmers, I think, were very, very excited about that and the prospect maybe of returning to a scheme more similar to REPS and moving away maybe from that AOS and GLOS model you talked about. I suppose, unfortunately, in that intervening time, we've seen a change in leadership in the Department of Agriculture, not once but twice, with Barry Cowan and Darragh Cleary ultimately being replaced by Charlie McConalogue. And I suppose it'll now fall to him to drive this and ensure that promise in the programme for government doesn't turn into something that ultimately will maybe sour the memory of REPS, and that we do deliver something that farmers will be expecting from it.
Now, of course, with the impending CAP reform, the Common Agricultural Policy, which is up there for grabs and a lot of money involved there's going to be much higher agri-environmental input and baseline requirements, and with carbon emissions a problem really, particularly over here in Ireland, obviously is going to be very swayed towards the agri-environment and sustainable farming.
Yeah, it's been absolutely a movement in the CAP, and that's been ongoing now for the last 20 years, is this growing importance of environmental and maybe public goods rather than simple food production. And that's something that farmers have been embracing, in terms of when we've seen REPS started out quite small in 1994, and it grew ultimately to about 60,000 farmers. And then you had a lot of buy-in then with AOS and GLOS. I suppose what's been unfortunate in that intervening time is that as standards improve and things move along, the requirements get higher and higher, and maybe REP as an entry-level scheme is very far away from where we are now in terms of GLOS and AOS having much higher requirements on farmers, and that ultimately has cost them in terms of their popularity when compared to a scheme like REP.
Now, of course, whole farm as against targeted approach, and this is a whole area that guys will have to be looking at and probably will be a key part of the new scheme.
Yeah, and I mean, it comes back really to the EU and value for money as well. So if we think about how REPS was paid, there was whole farm and there was 11 measures, and every farm had to implement and measure an element of those across their farm, and that you received on the back end then was a pick per hectare, and that meant that farms of various sizes received various payments for ultimately what might have been the same measures, and that became harder to justify as time went on. And that's why we moved maybe to the likes of GLOS or AOS, where everyone is paid the same for carrying out the same actions regardless of the farm size. So when you think of your wild bird covers or your low input permanent pastures, well, what it has done is has limited the payment rate. And I mean, ultimately for farmers, there is a trade-off for taking part in these schemes, and the reward has to be sufficient enough for them to attract them in. And that will be the challenge for the new REPS going forward, and that's something we've spoken about in the series, is how do you get a budget of sufficient size, but also, as you mentioned, ensure that you're delivering those environmental benefits that justifies a budget of that nature.
Now, of course, compliance and getting guys involved in paperwork, that's a whole area again that's important, that it's a scheme that can be relatively easily implemented by farmers, because you don't want to have it too technical and let too much paperwork and adherence involved.
Yes, this is where we've really found the sticking point in between, say, where we've come from, where GLOS is seen as a particularly regulation heavy and bookwork heavy, as you mentioned, and then maybe some of our newer schemes that we've seen come on stream. I know maybe some of your viewers down in Dungarvan will be aware of maybe the Bride project, which is down that direction, but these are results-based schemes, And it's not so much about what you do as about what you deliver on the other side. And this is something that I think the Department of Agriculture is very keen to implement, and the EU on a whole in Ireland is actually a test case for these results-based payments, which is ultimately rewarding farmers for what they deliver, I mean, not necessarily paying them for how they deliver it. That is a difficult thing to do, and it does require a lot of buy-in from farmers. And I think that's really where the new REPS needs to get to, is achieve that farmer buy-in, and maybe feel farmers less that it's about compliance and more about that they're actually providing that public benefit.
And indeed, from the farmer point of view, as you say, it's critical we get a large number of buy-in, because this is a must-do scenario here. And secondly, as regards the time frame here, what are we looking at before REPS 2 or a new REP scheme will be up and running, Barry?
Yes, it's very difficult really to see the exact scope department's timeline, and we haven't been provided with one yet. It's not in this week's, in week 3 either, but hopefully for week 4 we're hopeful of maybe the department giving some outline of a timeline. Where we are now and what we were told was that there would be a pilot element of this by the end of the year. Now, of course, that has to be nuanced with the fact we've had changes in leadership in the Department of Agriculture. But I think we could see a pilot element of it beginning from 2021. I mean, they've already promised ring fencing of 1.5 billion of carbon taxes. Now, obviously, they all won't come in a single year, but they need to get something, or they are aiming to get something up and running before the next cap, which of course won't be in January 2021, but is likely to be January 2022, and that's likely where you're going to see this REP scheme fit in.
Well, definitely, as we say, it's a crucial one for Irish agriculture going forward. Our new REP scheme, what it would look like, nobody really knows, but I must say, Barry, well done to you and all involved in the Farmers Journal on your third week this week. We look forward to next week, and hopefully by then we'll have some base of a timeline as regards the implementation of our new REP scheme. Barry Cassidy, the Farmers Journal. As always, Barry, thanks for taking our call, and best of luck with the ongoing features.
Thanks very much, Kieran.
Well, the Agricultural Sustainable Support and Advisory Service have been up and running in Waterford over the past year or so, and the man very much to the forefront in that is Cathal Summers of Teagasc. And indeed, it's a free, voluntary and confidential service for all farmers in selected priority areas for action, indeed, looking at water quality in particular. And once again, we're joined by Cathal Summers. Cathal, first of all, you must be delighted at the support and the amount of interest that you've had and impact from Waterford farmers.
Hi Kieran, thanks a million. It's great to have me on. Thanks a million for that. Yeah, no, look, it's been really good. We were tied up with COVID there all just at the earliest parts of summer, but we're back out visiting now fairly strong. And I've got really good reaction from farmers all around Waterford, really inviting me onto farms, and we're working together to try and look at some issues and try and come up with some solutions. And the input that I'm getting back from farmers is excellent, and I bring some of my knowledge to the table, and we work together and we try and come up with really good solutions. And I have lots of good examples across the county already.
Now, of course, that has been key, and I know initially you started off in the Kilrosny, Rathgorm, the Tay and Clodagh River area. Very important that really it's a dual purpose, as a carrot more than stick as regards.
Yeah, for sure. Look, for a long number of years we've had lots of heavy regulation, and look, that works to a point, but it hasn't made water quality better. It's kind of remained stagnant over the last 10 years. So the new approach is to work with people, like a carrot approach, rather than waving a finger at them. So when we go out into a farm, we'll have a look and a walk around on the land together, and we'll try and look for gaps that maybe we can make some improvements on the farm and improve water quality. But I rely very heavily on the local knowledge of the farmer on the ground, and we'll work together and look at that.
Now, you're currently in the Dungarvan, Bricker, the Bricky, the Dealish, the Colligan area, and of course up in Tallow in the Glenboy River, working very much with the local authority water programme as well. So it's all inclusive between everyone involved, all the stakeholders, improving this water quality at source.
Yeah, so down around this area, I suppose there's two of us there. In Waterford, we have two people, myself from the Teagasc side of the house doing an ASAP advisor. We also have TJ Phelan from Glanbia who works in the same capacity as me as well. So you'll often see the two of us around. And on the other side of the loop there, you have the local authorities water programme, and they provide the science to the programme. So they'll go out into the different areas and they'll look at rivers and they'll see what kind of condition they're in. And also they'll give us kind of indications if it's a phosphorus issue or a nitrogen issue. And we rely heavily on that science to, I suppose, target our advice to the different areas we go to.
And really small changes can have a huge impact, indeed, small changes on these farms. And I'm sure from your point of view, working with discussion groups and really trying to improve that soil health, but a small change can make a huge impact.
Yeah, look, we're not looking to reinvent the wheel. When I go out, first thing I do really is we head down across the field for a walk and we look at the land. The first thing I'll say to you is if you have an open drain or river, and we'll have a look at that first and see is there any potential losses there. But as we're walking around, I generally talk about the soil nutrition, about the type of P's and K's and nitrogen you're putting out, or maybe the liming programme you have in place, and we'll give advice around that as well. But really what we're looking for is nothing that's going to cost a lot of money. It's small little good management practice on the farm if we tighten up a little bit on, not only will it improve water quality and reduce nutrient losses, but it'll actually increase some production on the farm as well. So really what we're looking for is not big changes, but just to tighten the ship a little bit, just to keep the nutrient on the farm and stop it getting into the water.
And do you feel most farmers, as I say, first of all, are embracing the change, want this to happen, indeed reducing its carbon footprint is key in all of this?
Yeah, look, I suppose in the TV and media and radio, it's all over the place now about sustainability and environment. And look, farmers are the landowners. They're the people who mind the land from year in, year out, from generation to generation. And there's no one that's more interested in looking after land than farmers. So look, they want to make a living the same as everyone else, but equally they want to keep their own home place and their land good. So no, the interest is there, definitely. And look, the main key, I suppose, that for us coming onto farmers, we have to balance, I suppose, our production, which is the money that we make to look after the family, with the environment. And I suppose the whole key behind sustainability is that we can do our job day in, day out without negatively affecting the environment around us. Before
we come in here, you mentioned there's a very big virtual farm walk. Of course, it's all virtual now with the whole COVID scenario. On the farmer, Shane Fitzgerald, one of the open source Glanbia Teagasc farmers in Portlaw.
Yeah, so we'll have something come up there on the 1st of October. It's an online event. It's going to be a webinar, and it should be very good. So we'll be down with Shane, and we'll be having a chat about general production on Shane's farm and what he gets up to. But from my point of view, Shane is one of my clients that I visited on the ASAP service. So I went out there last year with Shane, and I visited him again this year, and we're going to talk a bit about the kind of work that Shane has done on the farm. And he's done some savage work over the last year. He's done a few little changes that he can see difference in himself already, and it's definitely worth tuning in. I suppose on the other side of the house as well, I've been doing a lot of revisits. I visited a lot of farmers last year for the first visits, and I would have given some advice, and I'm going back there visiting again this year. And I suppose that's the key to the programme. If we do come up with a few ideas, it's the key to the solution to the problem is following through on the ideas. And in the Tay, in the Clough there around Kilrosny and Rathcormac, I've gone back and visited a number of farmers, and huge work has been done up there. For example, there's been one farmer in particular, I was with him last week. He had cattle walking through the river a lot, so he's put in 2 bridges. I only asked him to put in 1 bridge, but he went ahead and put in 2. I have another guy up there that he has a lot of bank of erosion, and he's after, we came up with an idea where we would use local willow slips to stop the bank erosion, and it's come on really well, and it's done a great job. Lots of them are using protected urea now, low emission spreading, and a really good thing that I've come across this year is the use of clover. We've had a good year on clover this year, and around July and August, when there's good crops in there, several farmers I visited actually skipped rounds of nitrogen and let the clover do the job for them.
Well, definitely, as I say, it's been a fantastic initiative. I'm delighted with the feedback you're getting from farmers. You're working at the moment in mid-county around the Dungarvan area and up in the Tallow area, and I believe you'll be moving down around the city later in the year. So listen, Cathal, keep up the good work, and indeed well done with the Agricultural Sustainable Support and Advisory Service known as ASAP. You're doing great work, improving water quality and improving the environment. Thanks for talking to us.
Yeah, thanks very much, Karen.
Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
With GlanbiaConnect.com. Thousands of products in the palm of your hand.
And you're welcome back to part 2 of Farmview. Now, before I discuss findings of IFAC survey of the Irish food and agri business, particularly in the SMEs, let's have a look at some items from our farming calendar. Turning to our farmer markets, this Saturday we've the Waterford Farmers Market, John Roberts Square, and also on Saturday mornings we've Stradbally Farmers Market, now trading outdoors every Saturday morning. On Sundays we've Lismore Farmers Market, Castle Avenue, Lismore, running from 10 until 4. And also on Sundays we've the Ardmore Farmers Market running from 11 to 3, just off the beach car park in Ardmore. Thursdays we've Dungarvan Farmers Market every Thursday, Grattan Square from 9 until 2. While on Friday mornings we've Dungarvan Country Markets, Causeway Tennis Club and Abbeyside running from 9 till 1:30. And also on Friday mornings we've Waterford Country Markets in St Olave's Hall. Sheep farmers, don't forget a very important week next week when Teagasc will run a virtual sheep week. It'll run from Monday till Friday. It'll have an update every day on a wide range of information and updates, commencing every evening from 7. For more information, you can look up the Teagasc website. Turning to our show jumping front, with the Beachfield Sport Horse and Ponies Autumn Show Jumping and Jump Cross proving very popular, is continued every Saturday morning from 10 o'clock with the final schedule for Saturday the 10th of October. And a date for your diary for dairy farmers. Don't forget, a virtual farm walk will take place on Thursday the 1st of October on the farm of Shane Fitzgerald in Portlaw. How the farm is reducing its carbon footprint, and Shane, of course, a member of the Teagasc Glanbia Future Farm programme. We'll have more details on this virtual farm walk on next week's programme.
Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
With GlanbiaConnect.com. theconnect.com. Ireland's biggest online farming shop and more.
Well, IFAC, Ireland's farming, food and agri-business professional service firm, has published its 2020 Food and Business Annual Report. It's the IFAC's third annual sentiment survey of the Irish food industry. And indeed, joining us on the line is a man very much involved in IFAC. Of course, he's head of food and agri-business at IFAC, David Layton. David, welcome to our programme.
Thank you, Kieran.
David, as I say, it's your third annual sentiment survey of Irish food, but not surprisingly, COVID and Brexit very much to the fore.
Yeah, Kieran, definitely. And it's been such a strange year. A couple of things stood out, though. We've seen that optimism has really decreased for many food companies, and for agribusiness companies. So we've reduced from, a high of 74% being optimistic about the future in 2018, all the way down to 55% this year. Now, 55%, given what companies have gone through in the last 6 months, and given, Brexit coming like a train ahead of us, it's not too bad. We've also seen sales have declined for 52% of companies. We've never seen that in the sentiment survey before. Like 19% had sales decline last year, so that's a very, very big increase. It's not all negative, though. We have seen a lot of proactivity, and you've probably seen that as well in companies that you're dealing with in terms of cost reduction, debtor management, online sales. So not all negativity, and certainly the sector hasn't been as badly damaged in general as other sectors have been damaged.
Obviously, as I mentioned, COVID has a huge impact, but the Brexit one for a lot of the business is going to be crucial, getting Brexit right.
It is, and really, we did the survey back in July, right, and we were really in a high focus on COVID at that period. So Brexit in the last 10 days has really come back with a bang. And look, we know it never went away, but certainly it was towards the bottom of the list of priorities for a period there. Everything was focused on trying to survive COVID. I think it's difficult on SME management teams. So for those small and medium-sized enterprises, they've come through 6 months of a pandemic. We're not out of it yet, as we all know. They're light management teams. They're focused on the day-to-day and building their business. So having to face into Brexit is very difficult. And I guess over 50% of them don't feel ready for Brexit. And the majority aren't clear on what impact Brexit will have. And that's not surprising. But
right.
There's a lot that they have to do to get ready for it. They definitely have to look at the supports available from Enterprise Ireland, their local enterprise office, and Intertrade Ireland, because the smaller management teams need that support, need that help, because they can't really dedicate a whole lot of bodies to focusing on Brexit.
What type of scale of business are we talking about, from small to the largest, and indeed what type of number?
So we've 190 businesses surveyed. So it was actually more difficult this year to survey them because a lot of people were working from home, especially the owner management level that we were looking for. 190 businesses, everything from micro through to medium. So we've stayed away from the corporate side. We're basically going up to a top of about 20 million turnover. But the average turnover in the report will be under 10 million. So it's good, small, family businesses that are vital to rural Ireland, but have a lot of challenges coming down the tracks.
You mentioned earlier, David, about online. That has become crucial, and I'm sure a lot of those small businesses had to look at how they actually carried out their business and the importance of having a good presence online.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose one of the groups of customers and clients that we deal with who are totally focused on food service, so they were supplying into restaurants and hotels. They've definitely had a very difficult time because, as we all know, hotels and restaurants basically shut down and had very limited service available for a good few months there. So their whole revenue stream went missing. So a lot of those businesses had to pivot, and going online was certainly one way to pivot rapidly. And we do see in the report there was a 54% increase in those businesses trading online. From our perspective, trading online, it isn't the panacea. It isn't going to fix all your revenue problems. It is part of building your digital capacity and capability, though. And we'd be advising our clients to look at how they can digitize processing throughout the business, like from data analytics, using sensors, using automation, using collaborative robots. All those pieces, of the jigsaw have to be built now, not just online sales.
The agri-food industry and the whole farming agri-food industry is a very resilient sector, really, but the optimism that's there at the moment, has it really been badly dented, or do you feel that people are still positive about the future, or is there a real strong concern?
It is dented, but you're right. Banks will always say the food and agribusiness sector, lower margins, margin, but very steady and reliable. It's definitely resilient, Kieran, but it has been knocked, and we saw that in terms of the numbers who were willing to sell their business. COVID came up as a reason why some business owners were willing to sell their business now that may not have been willing to sell it in the past. Certainly one of our fears is that there's a tiredness in some management teams going into this Brexit period. There's so much disruption. If there is a hard Brexit, you can see a lot of customers, i.e. farmers of agri-businesses, coming under serious pressure. So we're certainly in a real state of flux at the moment. But food and agri-businesses, stable and resilient without question, and hopefully we get through this Brexit period, because Brexit has the potential to be more damaging to the sector than COVID.
Final question, as regards supports, are most of the business putting their hands up as regards using COVID supports, or how did you find businesses as regards looking for support to get them through this very difficult period?
6 out of 10 food and agri businesses actually access some support, and the most common ones were the temporary wage subsidy scheme. So that was the scheme that really made a massive impact for employers in terms of maintaining their link with employees. So it was a support to employees to keep employees on staff. So that made a big difference. The pandemic unemployment payment was used, loan payment breaks from banks, the rates waiver from the council was also used. Those 6 out of 10 using supports was really exceptional. The one I would mention as well, though, is the local enterprise office trading online voucher. That's still available. It's 90% funded, and any businesses listening today should take advantage of that trading online voucher.
Well, David, you and all involved, I know it's IFAC's third annual sentiment survey of the Irish food and agri-business, I think, and particularly the small and medium-sized enterprise. I think it's a very useful tool to have, and I'm delighted to see the resilience is still in the sector. I know huge pressure with Brexit and indeed COVID, but you and all involved. David Layden, Head of Food and Agri-Business at IFAC. Thanks for the call, and listen, well done on that fabulous report.
Thank you, Kieran.
Well, before I go on the racing front, we had a good week again for local Waterford connections cross-channel. Cappajock Tom Quealy was back in the winners' enclosure again at Chepstow, while back home with wins at Limerick for Dunhill trainer Shea Barry, as well as Dungarvan trainer John Kiley, who's really on a great run at present. While up at Kilbeggan, Agri's trainer Roger McGrath had back-to-back wins for his cousin Roger McGrath and wife Elaine in Tallow. But the week really has been a very sad week for all involved in horse racing, not alone in Ireland, but indeed UK and globally as well, with the sad death a 43-year-old former champion jock, Pat Smullen, from pancreatic cancer. A really true professional in every way, Pat was a role model and a fighter to the very end, and Pat helped raise over €2.5 million for vital cancer equipment and cancer research. So to his wife Frances, 3 children, and all the Smullen and Crowley family, we send our sympathies. Well, that's my lot for this week's Farmview, so once again my thanks to Ollie and Sean for all their help in putting this week's programme together. So from myself, Kieran O'Connor, stay safe, keep up the protocol, and hopefully I'll have your company again same time next week.
Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
With GlanbiaConnect.com. Thousands of products in the palm of your hand.